The movie kicks off with a team of U.S. Navy SEALs, led by Lieutenant Commander Karen, working alongside CIA operative Ritter on a mission to rescue a fellow agent who's been captured by a local militia in Syria. The SEALs are frustrated that Ritter won't give them the full details behind the operative's capture, but they follow his lead anyway. They head to a crumbling building where the suspects are hiding. The SEALs catch them off guard, successfully retrieve the hostage, and everything seems to be going smoothly until John, one of the SEALs, notices something strange. The weapons and gear around them are all Russian-made. John immediately points this out to Ritter, but Ritter brushes it off and urges everyone to leave. As the team tries to escape, they're hit with heavy gunfire, and Karen gets pinned down, surrounded by enemy forces. Despite Ritter's orders to evacuate, John refuses to abandon his friend. He pushes through, finds Karen, and helps her get out safely. As they make their getaway, it hits them. The local militia doesn't own the building. It's a Russian military depot. They've been set up. A helicopter swoops in and gets the team out, but the tension is far from over. During the flight back, John confronts Ritter, accusing him of knowing all along about the Russians' involvement. The argument gets heated, and the rest of the team struggles to break them apart. 3 months later, the soldiers have returned to their normal lives in America. Now living in Washington, D.C., John is at a party with his pregnant wife, Pam, who is in her last trimester. That night, they head back home, and while Pam heads to bed, John stays downstairs, relaxing with some music. Suddenly, the power cuts out, and John, sensing something's off, goes to check the issue. Before he can even make it upstairs, he's ambushed by masked intruders. John fights back, taking down one of the attackers. But while he's distracted, another man rushes to the bedroom and tragically shoots Pam and their unborn child. Desperate to reach her, John finds himself pinned down by more gunfire. He fights off the attackers, killing all but one, but not without suffering severe injuries. The last intruder escapes, leaving John badly wounded. Dragging himself upstairs, he reaches his bedroom, only to find Pam already gone. Overcome with grief, John collapses from his injuries. First responders rush John to the hospital, where he's barely holding on to life, against all odds. After intense treatments, he manages to survive. Meanwhile, in Washington, Ritter holds a meeting with top government officials, including Karen, John's close friend. During the meeting, Ritter drops a bombshell. 2 other members of the SEAL team from their Syria mission were assassinated in the last 24 hours. Despite Ritter's resistance, Secretary of Defense Clay brings Karen into the fold, inviting her to a briefing at CIA headquarters in Langley. During this meeting, Ritter confirms that the attacks were carried out by Russian operatives. However, the CIA has decided to close the case, choosing not to escalate the situation any further. Karen, furious and not trusting Ritter's judgment, begins her own investigation. Through her digging, Karen discovers that the passports used by the attackers were issued by Andriy, a chief of intel with a shady past and ties to the Russians. Determined to find answers, John sets his sights on tracking down Andriy, hoping to finally uncover the identity of the man who escaped that terrible night. A few days later, John tracks Andriy as he hurriedly heads to the airport, clearly trying to flee the country. John intercepts him, forcing Andriy's car to crash, causing a chain reaction of wrecking vehicles piling up on the streets. Amid the chaos, John storms into Andriy's car, holds him at gunpoint, and demands the name of the remaining intruder. Under pressure, Andriy reveals that the man who survived the attack on John's house is named Viktor Rykov. Satisfied with the information, John coldly kills Andriy and surrenders to the police. Soon after, Karen visits John in prison. During their conversation, John tells her everything, including the name he forced out of Andriy, and asks her to arrange a meeting with Secretary of Defense Clay. He's hoping to use the intel he has as leverage for his release. Though skeptical about the plan's success, Karen agrees to try. However, John quickly realizes his time is running out. The prison is crawling with Russian mob members, and he knows he won't survive long in there. Desperate, he fakes a medical emergency in his cell. When the SWAT team responds, John attacks and takes one of them hostage, threatening to kill him unless someone puts him in touch with the Secretary of Defense. The prison guards and officials are thrown into panic, unsure how to handle the situation. In their desperation, they reach out to Karen, explaining the crisis. Seeing this as an opportunity to show how critical the situation is, Karen convinces Secretary Clay to meet with John. In the room are Secretary Clay, CIA Director Ritter, and Karen. During the meeting, John shares the name Viktor Rykov. To his surprise, both Clay and Ritter react with visible alarm. Ritter explains that Viktor is no ordinary operative. He's a dangerous ex-Spetsnaz soldier with strong pro-Soviet anti-Western ideologies. Viktor believes that the best way to bring down America is by causing chaos and attacking Westerns on their own land. After this briefing, it's revealed that Viktor Rykov has been tied to several attacks on American soil in the past. CIA director adds that Viktor was sanctioned years ago and believed to be killed after causing multiple tragedies. However, John insists that Viktor is very much alive. He's certain Viktor was one of the attackers who invaded his home and managed to escape. To settle the matter, Ritter arranges a photo lineup and asks John to pick out Viktor. When John correctly identifies him, everyone is taken aback, realizing the deeper implications. With this confirmation, Secretary of Defense Clay quickly forms a task force to go to Murmansk, Russia, where Viktor is rumored to be operating from. He assigns Karen to lead the mission, and despite her strong objections, Clay also agrees to John's request to join the team. However, Clay sternly reminds John that once the mission is over, he will no longer be considered a soldier and will be sent back to prison as a felon. To avoid drawing attention in Russian airspace, Clay orders the team to use a modified commercial plane instead of a military one. The plan is to pass through Russian airspace undetected. While Ritter chooses to travel separately, the rest of the task force boards the commercial plane, ready to jump into the icy waters of the Barents Sea, deep within Russian territory. During the flight, John confides in Karen, expressing his deep regret over the Syrian mission, feeling that if he hadn't been involved, his family might still be alive. Karen tries to reassure him, reminding him that he can't blame himself for what happened, but she also adds that he may not be in the right headspace for this mission. Their conversation turns into an argument as John grows defensive. Before they can resolve the tension, the plane reaches the Barents Sea, and the soldiers prepare for their jump. Suddenly, a Russian military plane intercepts them, demanding they turn back for trespassing into Russian airspace illegally. The soldiers refuse, attempting to stall, but the Russians open fire. Their plane is struck, forcing them to crash into the freezing waters below. Miraculously, the team survives the crash, with John risking his life to dive back into the wreckage to recover the essential gear needed for the mission. They manage to escape the wreckage, boarding a Zodiac boat to make their way to Murmansk. As the team regroups in Murmansk, John begins to grow suspicious. He questions how the Russians could have known about their disguised commercial plane and wonders why Ritter, of all people, was conveniently on a different flight. His suspicions deepen when they reach their mission's safe house and find Ritter there, seemingly negotiating with Russian men while holding a bag of cash. Enraged, John launches an attack on Ritter, accusing him of betraying the team to the Russians. However, Ritter insists he thought everyone had died in the crash and was trying to secure local help to capture Viktor. Reluctantly, John gives Ritter the benefit of the doubt, and they move forward with the mission. Soon, they receive intel that Viktor has been spotted in an apartment. Led by John, the team charges toward the location, only to be met with a confusing sight. All of Viktor's security guards are already dead. Entering the apartment cautiously, they find Viktor wearing a suicide vest. When the team starts to back off, Viktor begins to talk, revealing he was once a CIA operative and claiming they are all just pawns serving the same master, America. Just as the team confronts Viktor, he detonates his suicide vest, triggering a massive explosion that takes out half the building. The task force soldiers are immediately pinned down, coming under heavy fire from every direction. Chaos erupts as they realize this is much more than just a failed extraction. As bullets fly, it dawns on the team. This whole operation, from the ambush of the Navy SEALs to the dead Russian soldiers in America, was a setup. Someone is pulling the strings, trying to ignite a war between America and Russia, and they're just pawns in the scheme. Amid the firefight, John takes charge. He knows there's little left for him but a long prison sentence, so he makes a bold move, distracting the Russian police and military, giving the rest of the team the chance to escape. As his comrades make their getaway, John battles fiercely, disguising himself to slip away unnoticed, eventually reuniting with the team at the warehouse. Once safely out of Russia, Ritter offers John a lifeline. He hands him some cash and proposes a new mission, work behind the scenes to uncover who's truly behind the conspiracy. Officially, John Kelly will be declared dead. Before parting ways, John apologizes to Ritter for misjudging him, and the two make amends. Weeks later, John resurfaces with a single goal in mind: getting to the truth. He ambushes Secretary of Defense Clay, forcing him into a car. After John threatens Clay's family, he confesses to being behind the intelligence leaks and orchestrating the conflict between the US and Russia, intending to start a war with Russia to boost the economy and unite the American people against a common enemy. John records the entire confession, then, in a final act of justice, drives the car off a bridge, watching as Clay drowns. John escapes the water just in time. Ritter takes the recording to CIA Director Sarah and uses it to negotiate a new identity for John. With his old life behind him, John Kelly is reborn as John Clark, ready to start over and forge a new path. 1 year later, John, now going by his new identity as Clark, meets with Ritter, who has been promoted to Deputy Director of the CIA. During their meeting, Clark proposes forming a multinational counterterrorism team with the codename Rainbow. Well, that's the end of this recap. Consider subscribing for more action stories like this.